And TSL HyuN for the 9th week in a row is our red Zerg down in the bottom left of Whirlwind. Way over in the top right side of the map, we have the challenger Byun Prime, who has managed to get 3 wins from him so far. That is something only a couple of other players have managed to do. So now he is in position to try and get a first here. If he can take a 4th map against HyuN, he'll be the first person in 9 weeks to do so.
Well, we'll see if he can do it. Whirlwind is a very, 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 very large map.
Yep.
As you can see in the middle, there's a lot of running paths you can actually get through, but I like these little cleverly placed blockers, I guess I'll call them, because they do actually force a few different running paths, and even though there's a lot of flanking opportunities here, a few key placed tanks can actually set up a decent defensive position in the middle. I'll wait to see how this map pans out over time, but I like it. I think it may be a bit too big, but it seems like it plays out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, the other maps that were a bit too big produced a lot of awesome games still. Terminus
oh my God.
being one of my favorites, but I mean, eventually it got to be too much, right? Because when every game was 30 to 40 minutes on Terminus, you just started dreading it, rather than it's like, okay, well, let's see how it unfolds, and it's going to be awesome. And it turned into, we know how it's going to unfold. It's just going to take forever.
Yeah,
no one picked it anymore, and it just kind of died off.
Joe and I casted the longest game in IPL on that map. It was 90 minutes long, and we got to the end where we were naming the individual colossi that were picking up giant kill counts, because that's all we had to do with our time. Command Center first for Byun, and he's done this a few different times, so we know that he's fond of it. This is actually his 4th in 7 games that he's decided to Command Center first. Well, what was the map? The ice. It was yeah. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I couldn't think of the name for the life of me for some reason.
That was the other massive map that had the in-base base.
That's the one to me. At first, it was really cool because it made macro games, but afterwards, it was like, okay, well, TVP, I know a Terran's going to double 11-11 racks and try and force an opponent out, but other than that, we're just playing a super long macro game.
Pretty much, and I mean, drops were always really super effective on that map as well, just on that little mini base. So like Warp Prism attacks were super good. Early Marine and Hellion attacks were super good. There were also cases where you could just provide vision and blink directly up onto that base within the base. So it's another interesting map that's, you know, time's gone past, and eventually once all the games started playing out the same way, it just kind of got stale and got replaced. But they provided some good games. I think there are more memorable games on Terminus just because you got some interesting spawn locations and things like that that panned out differently each time. So that was a fun part of that map. But Byun finishing up his 2nd base, actually probably going to be adding on a factory soon, but kind of weird there. I don't know what just happened.
He just showed 2 racks and canceled. It is now going to put up a 3rd command center is what it looks like. Yes, he is.
Okay.
So that's a big fake out now, and we'll see how HyuN reacts to this.
If I had to guess, I would say 6-minute hatchery. No, I don't know. He could still actually throw up that Roach Warren. It didn't work out for him 2 of the 3 times he's done it, so I'm actually going to be surprised if he does. But with that Baneling Ling Muta being so effective when he did use it, I feel like he probably should just stick to his guns. But at the moment, Zergling Speed coming up, so probably, in my opinion, not going to be doing the Roach Warren stuff this time around, just because the times that he did it, he actually did not get Zergling Speed until way later. So this is just kind of a cue for me that he's just going to try and use Lings to defend any early pressure that Byun puts on, and probably do a more normal, typical build for him.
Okay, well, 3 command centers, double gas. We'll be stirring down a factory here momentarily. He almost has enough gas banked up for that now. But Byun is going to remain pretty defensive. HyuN, on the other hand, putting down that 3rd base. We've seen that Zerg players love taking these in a line rather than taking this pocket base that's in the middle. Both bases are about as close to each other, but they like being able to establish as much map dominance in that direction and making sure that they're not going to have a lot of drop play or siege tank play that's going to be out of their reach.
That's right, and basically, yeah, it just lets them actually, I mean, the 3rd base actually has multiple entry points with medevacs and things like that, but the base that HyuN chose actually doesn't really have that left side as an option for drops to come in, so it's just one less side you kind of have to worry about when defending a base. Roach Warren is coming up at the normal time now for HyuN. Lair is probably going to be showing up as his next big tech, but he's probably just going to be making a wave of roaches, something like 8 to 10 like he normally does, and just use that to stay alive in case Byun throws something at him.
And unfortunately for Byun, he gets no vision of his opponent's bases. He has no idea what he's up to. Now, of course, we would probably be seeing roaches at about this stage of the game, and he doesn't pick up on those. You know, so he should feel relatively safe that he can continue going ahead with his strategy. These roaches that are coming up right now for HyuN, these are the normal 7 or 8 roaches that he produces during every game when he's going for his 3-base build.
Yep,
and we'll see double evolution chamber here in a bit, and then layer and baneling nest right afterwards.
These are basically just stay alive roaches. This is a point in the game where obviously Terran can throw a lot of different compositions at you, and you need some meat on your bones. Basically, those are the roaches, able to stand up pretty well to Hellions or Marines. Not so much tanks and marauders, but obviously Byun is not really going for that route. He's getting +1/+1 upgrades and stim now, but so far, can we hit the units tab? I just want to see what he's got on the field. Just 4 Hellions and a handful of Marines up to this point. He's doing a lot of work with his upgrades, infrastructure, and tech rather than just churning out units.
Well, moving back now and going up to a total of 5 barracks and a starport. So there we have it. He will swap that onto the reactor here in just a bit. And he's finally starting to power ahead with all those bio units we were talking about before. It's going to be about time to throw down an armory, or about when Byun does in this build, I should say. In the middle of the map, he runs smack dab into all of those defensive roaches, or the roaches that are put out towards the middle of the map. HyuN is doing something a little bit different. This is the same time that he normally takes a macro hatch, but he's actually putting it down at his 4th right away, so we may see a second hatch even put up right after that. There
and
it is.
Just did. There's the macro hatch up at the 3rd base location, kind of an interesting spot for it, but obviously he'll be able to...
2 macro hatches.
Oh, interesting. So this is a new one for HyuN. I'm not familiar with this one, the 5 hatch, 4 base, 6 hatch, 4 base.
This is likely to be the build nothing but huge amounts of speedlings and banelings build.
Well, oh yeah, that's a good point. He doesn't have his nest yet, though, I don't think, even though his lair has finished. Oh, there it is. Yeah, he does have his baneling nest. Okay. No Spire yet, though, so you could be right. Just mass HyuN units.
Yeah, and there's the roaches that he'll use to run as a blocker, and he has roach speed coming up, which is a differentiation from what he normally does. 15 roaches, as a matter of fact, and then it's probably just going to be a ton of Zerglings and banelings behind that. We'll see how many he actually wants to make. Now, because he has, you know, the 4th base up, the multiple macro hatches, this is not all in by any stretch of the imagination. He's even making 7 roaches so we can do, or 7 overlords so he can do nothing but produce a bunch of units here in a bit.
Yep.
But of course, he will be slightly behind in tech.
Yeah, Byun actually only making Marines up to this point, Marines and Hellions. So roaches do stand up pretty well to the Hellions. If they can block those, they can actually keep those out of the mineral line and really not have a tough time at all. But the stimmable Marines with 1/1 upgrades already will be doing a lot more damage. Banelings will need to be made. Actually, drones undefended at this 4th base, but it is just a 4th base. Roaches do rush up to receive this fighting force of Byun, and once these lings come out, he can start to morph banelings, but I don't think he might not even need them.
This is what Byun has just fallen into, is a massive trap from HyuN. That was one of the most clever plays I have seen in Fight Club so far, and it shows you how smart HyuN is. This entire series, when Byun has gone for command center first, when he's doing these things, he has built a timing at exactly now that's designed to disrupt all of his opponent when he's moving into his infrastructure, when he's moving into 2-2, when he's moving up into his super high tech. It's happened every single game, and HyuN just baited him. At a time when he knew Byun would be moving out, HyuN produced a huge round of speedlings and roaches, and now this is just designed to kill his opponent outright. Beautiful, beautiful decision by HyuN.
All right, so basically, yeah, Byun does not have enough units to be able to deal with this huge production. He is actually going to gun it straight for the Baneling cocoons. Might get a couple of them. There's no Baneling speed done, so that could actually hinder this attack a little bit. You can see them focus down pretty quickly, but if any 2 of those Banelings connect, that's going to be pretty devastating for Byun. Obviously, all these workers are still very exposed to the Banelings as well. I don't know if HyuN really wants to use them on the SCVs because there are lings still standing, and, you know, Marines could actually still be pocketing up. He's making 7 at a time, but basically at this point, I think it's pretty much over. HyuN is just going to continue going through, killing all these SCVs. You can see Byun actually lifting SCVs off the top side. Actually has a tank as well, providing cover fire, but basically with this many lings, oh my goodness, this many lings and roaches, this is going to be extremely hard for Byun to fight back. 88 supply deficit.
Guys, HyuN is so good. This was just expertly done. That is, I can't even fathom how smart that was. So Byun really falling to this at the moment. He's trying to set back down his command centers, but he can't even kill the units that are up at the front, and HyuN can kind of just throw units into the meat grinder here. And even though they aren't the world's most cost-efficient engagements, he just needs to be able to keep denying economy. His opponent is down to 37 workers, and he's still killing bases. Now this one is on fire. He can cycle back over to this one and deny it for a while. All the while, he's just pumping endless amounts of units on 4 bases.
That's right. With Baneling speed coming up now as well, he hasn't even really had to build much else as far as tech. He's just going to continue on with these Roaches, Lings, and Banelings as long as he can. Byun already being denied all that mining time at the natural and the third means it's going to be pretty hard for him to make anything other than Marines at this point. So once these Roaches catch up, he will have enough meat on his bones once again to be able to deal with that, as all the tanks were pretty much taken out during the last attack. So even the Lings will be able to get in and start to rip up the inside of Byun's main next time he goes in there.
Okay, so HyuN now, like I mentioned, he was a bit behind in tech. He's not put up an infestation pit to the best of my knowledge.
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a little bit lacking there, and he just this was just designed to make huge amounts of Roaches and Zerglings and Banelings and just kind of throw them at his opponent. So as we can see, another 62 Zerglings just popping out.
All right, so Byun is going to have the Marines fire for a little while. Obviously, he's going to pick them up just to keep them alive, but if they're constantly picked up inside the medevacs, they're never, ever going to be able to thin out these actual Zerglings. So he's going to come in, try and force a lift again, kills a couple of these SCVs. There is a tank on the high ground still, but you can see no Zergling blood there was spilled. He's going to continue on into the natural. I don't think he really has much in the way of a tank line there, and plus all these Roaches are going to be able to stand up a lot better than the Lings. He's going to surround absolutely everything. Medevacs pick up. I would be surprised, yeah, if he just doesn't kill all these SCVs and start to move up and then just try and eliminate the tanks to do the death blow here.
Banelings are kind of running blocker for everything else, but it works because it forces everything back off of this position. Even though this is a 41 kill tank, it is eventually going to die here, and Byun is kind of down to his last gasp of health. Wow. He's got a lot of medevacs here. He will be able to fight back this wave of units, but he's lost a total of 53 workers now. There was another 100 Zerglings that were in production at the same time, and HyuN can actually keep doing this, even though these aren't the most cost-efficient engagements. Just keep throwing waves of units at his opponent.
Yeah, it's not cost-efficient like you said, but when you work on 4 bases compared to your opponent's 1, it's really not even that much of an issue. The Lings are going to come into this space every time. Look at that, 2 more mules dropped, unfortunately, for Byun. He's going to lose both of those to tank fire and Lings. Now the Lings are just going to swarm around everything else. All these Marines drop. He's not even going to waste his time trying to fight them with that very low surface area. They're going to string in here, rope all the way around these Marines, and finally that 65 kill tank gets taken out by a Ling, and Byun is still standing. He does have quite a lot of Marines and quite a lot of medevacs as well, so these Lings and Roaches, I'm not sure how much longer these are actually going to be sufficient for HyuN.
It is kind of funny. I mean, you know, Byun does have a sizable army, because if you take the difference in workers out of there, he's about a 30 supply deficit in terms of overall army. And he's doing a very nice job of picking up his units all the time whenever they get surrounded, taking minimal losses. He is trying to just straight out micro this one, though, and try and avoid and try and just DPS down this army immediately, but unfortunately he can't quite do it, realizes it, and gets out of there. All the energy is now gone on the medevacs.
All right, 14 more Roaches coming for HyuN, only 7 Marines at a time, so if HyuN actually does get everything consolidated here, he could actually try and take out Byun again. Byun is at a 90 supply deficit, still very few workers, still trying to establish that third, and just can't quite get it alive long enough. He can't even land it because of a single Zergling, so he's going to go deal with that. Try and get landed, drop some mules, get some SCVs out. Maybe not even actually get any SCVs out. Maybe he's just going to try and keep working with the 28 he has.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's about all he's got at the moment. Stims up one more time, and HyuN backs away until he has all of his units in place. And Byun just lost so many of his TAC units up at the front. That's pretty much it. He GG's. HyuN is once again just one game away from